Hi. I have to return a couple books to the library tomorrow, so I thought I would talk about just briefly some of the books that I've read because I love to read. I got Famous for a Living. This one was on my to-read list for a while. It's about a young woman who has a situation that brings her to a place where her uncle runs he's like a ranger for a forest, and there's a group of people there. Dana's behind me. You can see him in the corner there playing. She meets a group of people and they all get along pretty well, and the story is basically about things that she does for her social media and the interaction she makes and also the relationship she has with her best friend. It is a romance supposedly, but I will say what I love about this is I don't remember there being any bad words in it, and I actually don't like to read books that have bad words. I know that's really like old school, but that's how I am. Not even really so much of a romance book. So I liked this. It wasn't like amazing, but I liked it. I also got Ready or Not. I've seen several people talk about, I think I even had this recommended to me through like Barnes and Noble on an email. It's also a romance. Now this one has language in it, so I don't really appreciate that because there was like too much of it. Could have done without it. This is about a young woman who gets pregnant. She didn't plan it. It just kind of happens, and she decides she's gonna go through with the pregnancy. So it's also about her relationship with her best friend, with her brother. There are a couple of sexual scenes. Was not expecting that, but it wasn't even like towards like near the end, and I was just like, ooh. So beware. I actually got very into it. This is the one that I read pretty quickly, so I liked it, but I don't like all the content in it, and it kind of, I'd say out of these, I liked this better. I really like the character development in this better too, but she developed really well in this as well. I'd say they're about equal, depending on how you look at things. I think I mentioned that I picked up Cold Clay, the second book. I did finish it a couple weeks ago. This one I did not like as much as the first book. I talked about the first book in one of my autumn book things. So I really love these mysteries that are surrounded around little critters from the forest. I think they're so cute. I really like that. It wasn't amazing, but it was really good. I can't wait to read the next one. This I read to my whole family. My one son bought this at one of those book fairs like a year ago. And he had not, maybe it was even 2 years ago, and he had not read it. And I think he read like a few chapters and he was like, it was not that great. Oh, it was a bit boring. It was boring. It's about a family that goes to China, visits their family. The one young girl, she's very attached to her aunt. And her aunt is all about like finding treasure. She's about learning about the mysteries. She wants to find this special treasure, but her aunt goes missing, and so she says, I have to find this treasure. She left behind a map. So she goes on this adventure, but she doesn't tell her mom where she's going. Very dangerous stuff. Don't recommend. And it was just, the plot was just didn't like it. None of us liked it. I did listen to an audiobook. I wanted to read it, but the audiobook was very good. Sorry about the noise behind me. Anyway, it was A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. I listened to it over the time of like a week and a half or two, and it was so good. There were a couple bad words in it, which surprised me because it was written like the 50s or 40s. It is set in pre-World War I, right before the war, and into a little bit of the war. And it's set in New York City, in Brooklyn. And it's about a young girl and her family. And it just talks about her time living in poverty and what they had to do over time. Tells history of her family. But the way it was written, it was gorgeous. Like, The writing was so good that it made you feel like you were a part of the family. And I feel like books are not written like that anymore. It just had so much depth to it where I was like, I want to know what else happens to them. What next? It was so good. One of the best ones I have read, listened to in a long time. I think even on like Goodreads, I gave it 4.5 stars. I love it. They don't have half stars, but that's what I would have given a 4.5. I'm also reading on my tablet on the Kindle app, The Art of Making Memories. I read this author. He wrote like 2 other books. Like I think he wrote the Little Book of Huga. I don't know. I read 2 other of his books though. This one is definitely not as good as those. It's not bad, just not into it. Just getting through it, you know. One and Only Ruby. I'm reading this to my family. I read the One and Only Ivan long ago when it came out. I loved it. Sorry about the reflection. This is the 3rd book. I have not read the 2nd book. My one son read the 2nd book. I only read the 1st book. It is definitely a kid's book. I don't like this one so far as much as the One and Only Ivan, but I'm only 47 pages in. The author, I have read Crenshaw, she wrote, which was cute, and Wish Tree, which I read last year. That was one of the best books I read all year. So I really like this author. I just finished this book, which was on my to-read list for probably like, I guess like 3-4 years. The Night Diary. Sorry, it's got a library cover on it. So this is about a young girl who, set in 1947 when India was split between Pakistan and India, when it became 2 countries, and you had the Muslims went to Pakistan or stayed there, while the Hindus and the Sikhs went to India. So this girl, she actually is, her mother was Muslim and her father is a Hindu, and her father's a doctor, and she has a brother, and she lives with also her grandmother, and they have a cook. So they have to leave their home because now where they had been living, Pakistan, they have to move now to India. So it talks about what a family would have gone through, and she's writing a diary to her mother who has been deceased for this whole time. And so the diary is just her inner thoughts to her mother. This is a middle grade book, but I think adults would love this. This is not for young kids. There's violence in this. This is talk about something that actually happened. It's historical fiction. So I don't recommend this to young kids, but if they're like 13 and up, I'd say this is a really good book. It gets them to understand a different culture and what a girl like this would go through. I really enjoyed it. Reading Sky Meadow, Notes from an English Gardener. It's beautifully written. I feel like it's written as if it's an old book. The details that he says throughout the book are very nice. I mean, if you like gardening, this is totally a good book for you. Basically, it's a man, his family moves from London into a countryside of England. It's a completely different situation than they're used to, but he had this dream to have a garden, to have his own cottage with a beautiful garden with landscapes and such. So he went with his gut to just pursue his dream while being able to work from home. So far, it's very lovely, a little dry, but it's cute. I love gardens. I love flowers. His type of garden is a flower garden. So I'm enjoying it. It's just peaceful.